Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2025 is the future of work. Meaning is the new money. In a world shaped by rapid innovation and constant change, the pursuit of purpose and impact has never been more important. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and purpose-driven innovation. Here, we tackle the pressing challenges of our time, from the rise of artificial intelligence to the growing need for meaning in the workplace. Together, we'll uncover how leaders can ethically integrate AI to enhance decision-making and keep humanity at the heart of their organizations. Remember, amidst all the technological advancements, in the end, it's always about the people. This podcast is your resource for actionable tools, thought-provoking discussions, and inspiring stories. It's time to go beyond leadership development and focus on leadership impact, creating workplaces where people thrive, innovation flourishes, and meaning truly becomes the new currency. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again, and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is M. Curtis McCoy, a personal branding expert and the president of Newswire Magazine. He helps leaders reach massive audiences through interviews on Amazon Fire TV and Newswire Magazine. He can even feature you on the 96-foot billboard on Times Square in New York. Now that is an achievement. As a personal branding expert, M. Curtis McCoy works with authors, entrepreneurs, motivational speakers, podcast hosts, and leaders who are already crushing it in life and business but need more exposure. With a background in business development, Curtis has launched and scaled multiple ventures, demonstrating a keen understanding of market dynamics and strategic planning. His expertise in identifying opportunities, developing effective business strategies, and enhancing operational efficiency is unparalleled. M. Curtis McCoy also hosts a show on Amazon Fire TV called Success, Motivation, and Inspiration, providing a platform for thought leaders to discuss personal branding, business strategies, and leadership. And I am truly pleased and honored to have him here today on my podcast. How are you, Curtis? How goes it this morning?
Man, Dr. John, I'm so glad to be on your show here, and I appreciate that introduction. You made me sound like a rock star.
Well, it's good.
We might need to get you into personal branding.
I appreciate it. Hey, by the way, just call me John, okay? Just call me John, because I only use the term a doctor on two occasions. One is when I'm putting in proposals for speaking opportunities, and the other one is when I make dinner reservations. You get a good table every time. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, so let's dive in. Here we go. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. There is an adage in the internet world that goes, content is king. Do you believe content is still king? And if so, how do you help your clients differentiate their content from others and get in front of prospective fans, followers, and influencers?
So there's basically two different ways. There's earned media and paid media. Both go hand in hand, but they're completely different type of a process there. I actually spoke at a personal development conference this weekend here on two different events, keynote speaking on paid media versus earned media. First day was on earned media. Your question relates a little bit more towards the earned media side, and that's basically things that you can do to earn exposure, whether that's getting featured in a local newspaper or somebody talking about you on the radio or a blog writing an article about you because you've done something cool. Paid media would be more like the stuff that I do, where I'm interviewing people on Amazon Fire TV, putting you on the cover of Newswire Magazine. The billboard in Times Square, New York is not cheap to run ongoing ads on that is all that's basically cost you some money to do. Basically saying content is king. That's still absolutely true. There's a lot of people who are having a problem trying to figure out what type of content to create. How do I get on and post every single day? I was on the phone yesterday with Meta, with a rep from Meta. that was actually, let's see, Friday on a rep with a rep from Meta that was saying you need to be posting an absolute minimum of 3 times a week per platform. So if that's Instagram, Facebook, Threads, she's saying you need to get on there absolute minimum 3 times a week, no more than twice a day, 7 days a week. But to create even 3 posts a week, a lot of people are trying to figure out, how do I create good quality content? An easy tip is just to start documenting your journey.
Do you want to go on, or I appreciate that.
Content is king.
Content is king. Let me do this, Curtis. Can you list for me 3 mistakes that you see people make in the personal branding arena? What is it they do, and why do you think they may continue to do it?
There's so many people that we see people on Instagram is a good example of this, where you get on and the guy life coaches, entrepreneurs, motivational, whoever that are out there standing in front of a rented Lambo, trying to show the world how successful they are, how great they're doing. And then you get done with the interview and the guy can't afford to do the advertising. So obviously not practicing what they preach. But so many people are doing a really good job of creating content that looks like they're the kingpin, the top dog, really crushing it in life. And it makes the rest of us try to feel like we need to level up our production value so that we look like we're doing as good as they are. But big thing on that is just share your journey. When I started a podcast like you're doing now, years and years ago, where I was actually living in the back of one of my retail stores, and I'd get up in the morning. I didn't have a shower, there was no apartment in the store. I was sleeping on a futon couch, jump up in the morning, go to the gym to shower, shower, put my suit and tie on, and then head back. And I'd launched this podcast, standing there with a fake, basically a microphone I got at a thrift store that wasn't plugged in anything. I didn't have a soundboard or anything. And then had this old Android phone I'd put up on a tripod, and I'd get on and try to talk to people about success. Yes, hello, this is M. Curtis McCoy. Today I'm going to talk to you about success or leadership. Standing in front of a black curtain, trying to look like I wasn't living in the back of my retail store. I look back at those videos now, I looked like an idiot, but I was trying to fake it, look like I was successful, look like I was standing on a stage. Nobody thought a guy standing in front of just because I was holding a microphone, nobody thought I was standing in front of an actual stage background when I'm talking to the camera, just this goofy. So just be yourself. I went through a whole lot of iterations of that, trying to figure out how to actually present the image the way I want it to look. And basically just get out there, start sharing, share the real you. You don't need to be trying to fake it, and be who you are.
I think you got to start someplace.
Yes, sir.
And you got to start someplace, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but that's okay, because you'll learn as you go along. You get better at doing things, and you find your way to where you need to be. So I absolutely agree with you. In fact, when I talk leadership, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, I always say that leadership to me is a come as you are. Just show up, get involved, do something, be involved, and hopefully that the people who are in an organization create a space for you, create an opportunity for you to become involved. So any reflection on that?
I don't think you actually have to be invited. If you're just trying to get started, get out there, start producing content. Even if you've got zero budget, figure out a way to solve somebody's problem. When you start solving enough problems, invitations start coming in, and pretty soon they're paid, where you're getting paid to speak. But at the beginning, don't worry about whose table you're sitting at or what. If a podcast won't accept you as a guest because you don't have the right lighting, the right video, the right setup, right recorder or microphone, just get out and start creating your own audience. That could be with a blog, that could be getting on, giving tips every day. Pick up your smartphone and just record some tips that are relevant to your audience, how you can help them solve a problem. If you start solving enough problems for enough people every single day, pretty soon you become known as the expert in your field. And then you start getting invites. Then you've created your own table, and pretty soon people either want to come to your table or they're going to invite you to theirs.
Good point. Very good point. I think, I don't know if this is we're going to double back some things, but I just thought a comment that I saw in our workup was interesting to me. And that's in a workup to the event today, you made the comment that personal branding, and again, I'm sorry if this is redundant, personal branding often encourages inauthenticity. And what is it that pushes people to be inauthentic, do you think?
A big part of that is just trying to compare ourselves to other people in our industry. And I'll have to apologize to you here. Some of your audience may know I survived a malignant glioblastoma brain tumor. So days when my sugar's been messed up, I'm also diabetic. Sugar's been messed up. If I had a seizure, those type of things, I end up goofy for the next couple of days. If I get off track, feel free to lead me back to where to the question we're supposed to be talking
No
about.
problem. No problem. And you're great. I have to tell you, I lost a dear friend of mine to inoperable brain cancer. He was deaf and was there at 9.
Wow.
I was in the Bronx, got in his squad car. He was an inspector, I think, at the time, and drove down to 9/11, starting to pull people out of the wreckage. And 20 years or so later, he was one of the funniest, most outstanding people you'll ever know. He was a great trainer, taught me a lot about training. We were doing some work together, traveling the country at that time, doing counterterrorism training, him and I, and a group of other people. And we just had a blast wherever we went. So I feel for you. And like I said before, I'm glad you're still with us, man. I'm glad you're still with us.
I appreciate you. Sorry to hear about your friend.
Yeah, I appreciate. Let me ask you this question, Curtis, because about now, focal length in a sense and focal point. Okay. How important do you think a mission statement is to either a company or a person?
I've owned retail locations. I owned a cosmetic medical laser clinic, a pharmaceutical company manufacturing bioidentical injectable research peptides, had a telecommunications business, a Christian clothing company. So I've had a bunch of companies. And over the years, we originally would do the mission statement where we had most of the employees didn't even know what it meant, but we had some kind of a cheesy canned mission statement that says, our goal is to best serve our target audience with whatever. I think if you're going to have a mission statement for your company, even if that's for your brand, make that about the target, the individual, one person you're looking to serve. So if you know that target avatar down to age, gender, marital status, maybe they're voting, their political, whatever political affiliation they have, income range, if you can picture that person down to, do they like cats or dogs, or do they have a pet goldfish? Now you start focusing on their problems. You solve a specific problem for that one, your absolute perfect client, and you figure out how to solve that problem the best. Then as you're going along, keep refining that mission statement. Okay, if your target audience, your target client is a 38-year-old single mom named Sally, who's an accountant, who she makes however much money a year, and this is the problem that she's got. Now, when you start solving that problem daily for Sally, everybody else can get value out of that if they align with any one of those identifying subjects. So you could keep refining that mission statement as you go along, as your business progresses, as you figure out, hey, I can also help this other type of a person. Keep tuning up that mission statement. That's an effective mission statement. Just saying, oh, we aim to constantly progress and be the best business that we could be. That's a waste of your time. And
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to be targeted, especially. And one of the things I'm talking about today is that the mission statement should really reflect the values of the organization, because it's not only for the people outside, the clients, but it's also for the people inside. What is that galvanizing spirit that makes people want to show up every day and be part of what you're doing? I think it's important, very interesting perspective on that. I appreciate that very much. And yeah, I get it. I get it now. I didn't get it about a year and a half ago. I went through a rebranding effort about a year and a half ago. And up until then, my website was all about, here's John Dentico and this is what he does, right? Okay, here he is. And you find out nobody really cares. So what you have to really zero in on is, what are the problems that people are facing? You have to be very problem oriented, problem focused. I call it how do you alleviate somebody's pain?
yes,
How do you take their pain away? Right. And I think that branding, and I'd love to get your reflection on this, is all about taking pain away from people. It's about alleviating the troubles that they have, wherever, however they are engaging them, if you will.
yes, sir.
I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, basically you are what we do is we help leaders who have already built a successful personal brand. They're doing what it takes to get their earned media. So whether that's business, if that was a coach, consultant, motivational speaker, an electrician, whatever your job is, when you've already done enough where you're building your personal brand, authors are huge on this. They make money by selling their books or using the book as a lead magnet and being able to sell their product, service. You typically don't get rich selling a book, but so authors are doing book tours, doing all these crazy things, trying to figure out how to get their name out there. So we work with people who are already crushing it in life and business. Authors, entrepreneurs, podcast hosts, motivational speakers. We'll do these interviews, say Amazon Fire TV or the average Newswire Magazine interview. If you're featured on the cover, we're getting over 100,000 readers on your article in the first month. So that's something.
Wow.
And I would not recommend going with paid media until you've already done something in the earned media side. And you also need to have a way to monetize that traffic. So if you're trying to get on say you're getting on right now, you've got a young guy on your audience watching this whose parents have said, okay, you can either we've saved $50,000 for you. It's either going to college or it's starting your own business. And this is an example I've actually had where a guy was trying to pay to build his brand. And he was dealing with some type of a life coach type of person that I think was just bleeding him dry and not really providing real value. But he had told him, you need to start doing paid media. You need to get a hold of this Curtis McCoy. This coach guy hadn't been featured with me, but told the kid, you need to do the interview, get featured. And so when we did our interview, I was asking the kid, okay, what problem are you solving? What problem are you solving people? How do you help people? And how do you monetize that solution? Because if you don't have a way to monetize the traffic that you've already got coming in, it's not time to start spending money on advertisements or paid media to build your brand larger. Because if people just know about you and there's no way to pay you for your service, you're just losing money. If everybody in the world knows you and you've got nothing to sell them, you're still losing money on it. I would say figure out how to build that, figure out what problem you solve, charge a reasonable amount where you can have your system set up where you can close that, where you can make money on it, whether that's them reaching out to you, doing a wire transfer, or maybe you got your online course coaching or whatever your course is there, but have a way they can pay you. Then when you start spending money on the paid media, then they click through from your article. Go, hey, yeah, it looks like I'd like to do business with this guy, and make it quick and easy for them to go from I'd like to do business with you to having the money in your account.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. You just can't you have to create some level, some footprint and some product or service, get in something that is credible. And perhaps, as you well know, with some testimonials of people who have used your product or service and say, hey, this is the greatest sliced bread. You got to have this stuff. So, yeah, I agree with you. Curtis, I've got a very interesting question I think I'd like to ask you. We are in the beginning, if you will, of another revolution, a revolution involving artificial intelligence and AI. Just out of curiosity, do you use AI in your work? And can you give us an idea of how you might use it?
We started using AI back in, I think, 2017 before it was commercially available. It's progressed unbelievably. Just even in the last few months, it's continuously getting better and better. But artificial intelligence does not exist. Figured I'd give you an awkward pause there. Artificial intelligence is not a thing. When you get on a computer, you go to ChatGPT or BART or whatever the system is, you ask it a question. It's not an intelligent, smart, something that's got feelings, all it is. Agreed. It's taking the sum of all human knowledge that's publicly available on the internet, and it's trying to research, get a consensus on what the best answer to that question is. So you've seen some stuff or you've probably heard about asking the same question about different political figures, and one of them is completely skewed or just a ridiculous answer, or saying it cannot answer that question. And I can't answer that question about political figures. Now you ask the exact same question about the other party, and it'll answer it just fine. That is because of whoever's putting the knowledge into that, where it's spitting out the answers. It's not smart. It's just summarizing that knowledge that's already available publicly.
So interesting. I've noticed that myself in my peeking in, if you will, on the AI revolution. People have got to understand, and this is a statement I really am starting to make. It's not objective. It's not objective. It's programmed by people who have perspectives and biases. No question. So one must be on guard. One must be really looking at this and saying, is it giving me truth, or is it giving me a version of the truth it wants me to know? So I absolutely agree with you. And I think it can be incredibly helpful. For example, I use it in two limited ways. I use it as part of Grammarly whenever I'm writing something, goes in, yeah, and it corrects it. The other thing is I use a program called Descript
Yep.
to actually create, I'm sure, transcriptions for the podcasts. And it does one hell of a job writing the show. It's great. All it has to do, the conversation, if you will, titles, the CC, the closed captions. And then it produces a really beautiful piece of work with all, okay, at minute this, at minute that Sean talks about that kind of thing. So it does a wonderful job in that. And I lean on it to do that because it really does save me time. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And there are not many people who are willing to step up and say exactly what you said. And that is, it does have biases. It is programmed by people and being steered
Yep.
in certain directions. So I think more than anything else, I would say to people who listen to this podcast, be aware. Just be open and be that something in there that you plan on seeing. So I appreciate that very much.
Do you care if, is it okay if I share with something with you that might get me kicked off your show?
Go right ahead.
So talking about using AI, I told you before we got started here, I've been doing 6+ interviews most days, 5 days a week, where I'm a guest on other people's shows. And as you probably know, it's very easy to get guests as a podcast host because everybody wants to be a guest on your show. As the host, you're doing all the work, you're filtering through, trying to get rid of the weirdos. Then after our conversation, say we talk for 30 minutes, you're spending all the time and money to edit, to do the add B-roll or add captions or crop out the ahs, filler words, awkward pauses. If you're interviewing a guy that survived brain cancer and says some weird stuff, you're cropping out that stuff. So I may spend 30 minutes talking to you. Now you're spending, say, 8 hours editing, tuning that into a really nice episode. Now you're having it transcribed with Descript. And so everybody wants to be a guest. It's very hard to find shows to be a guest on. So with your podcast, a lot of times podcast hosts will ask me, how did you hear about the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast? Or how did you hear about whatever the show is? And in all honesty, the only thing I've typically ever heard of about the show, doing 6 shows a day, there is no way to watch an hour of everybody's show plus do the guesting. So I created a custom GPT that researched everything that's ever been written about or by me online. I've been doing the branding for years, so I've published thousands of articles. So now I've built a custom GPT where it studies everything that M. Curtis McCoy has ever written or has been written about me. And then I have it write in the first person format, a relevant podcast pitch to be on each show, where I'll select, say, Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I put that into this custom GPT, ask it to write a relevant pitch that's going to match your audience. Now it writes the pitch. I click submit. I can send out dozens of those in an hour. And then as the shows are responding, then I'll look through, I'll go watch an episode and make sure that the host isn't a weirdo talking about something that I don't want to align with. But so I'm not actually having to even look at the podcasts until after I've done after they've responded and said, yeah, I'd like to interview you. Now I look at an episode and everything up there. But yeah, AI is absolutely awesome to be able to just get rid of work that, if you imagine how many virtual assistants would I have to hire to go out and listen to every possible leadership podcast on the planet and find the best ones to send outreaches to, it would be almost impossible to have. I don't have that kind of a budget to hire enough people to sit down and listen to all these podcasts and then write custom emails for them. So yeah, AI is really great. as far as that goes. And then, like I said, if you would have responded and I looked at your show and it was not a 5-star, really great podcast with a bunch of good ratings, good guests, and I said, oh, hey, sorry, I'm too busy. I can't do this episode.
No, I think it makes sense. I had a guest on, Ed Temple. Ed is an MCC qualified coach from Canada. And he made this wonderful description, if you will, or summarization of AI. And he said this, he said, 75 to 80% of the redundant things that we do, the things that we do over and over, if you will, the make work stuff, AI will probably handle that really well. He said, but the other 20%, that human side, is going to make our humanity even more important. That in the end, and I'm sure you know this, it's all about the people. It comes down to and hoping that people will be smart enough and to understand that you can't just give it to a chat GPT or AI and say, I'm done with it. You have to go through it and make sure it measures up to who you are as a person and to your ideas as well. So I appreciate that very much. A great idea of how to use, and I don't think that's going to get you kicked off anybody's show, to be honest about it.
I actually had a show about AI where the host was extremely offended when I mentioned, she said, do you use AI? How do you? I said, yeah, actually, I wrote this pitch using AI by copying and pasting your description in and had it right in my tone of voice. And she said, we won't be airing this. That you got offended that,
Wow.
that I had said that I hadn't heard her show. I'm like, you're talking about using AI to cut out the repetitive stuff. I could spend 60 hours a day if that time existed and never get the results that I'm getting right now by just having AI create these relevant results.
Right. And Amazon has used AI for a long time to understand what your buying habits are and offer you. Every day I get 2 or 3 emails from Amazon. Hey, we think we found something you might like. So that thing, and that is in the world of resumes, for example, now, and job opportunities. You have to get through an AI in order to get your resume on somebody's desk who takes 2 minutes to take a look. And there are now AI crafting tools for resume. You can pay, I think one I saw was $39 for 3 months. Wonderful. And you can feed in all your stuff. And as you say, you can formulate you can look at a job description. You can say to the AI, I want to go for this job. Here's everything I've put into the system. Make my resume get past the AI. And I don't know if it's going to be one of these things where it becomes layer on top of layer on top of layer of AI as it moves up the ladder. But right now, there are people who are relying, if you will, on that to get their resumes in front of the right people. Any thoughts on that?
So that's something. Yeah, there's I'll go back to what I was tie that into what I was talking about there with the personal branding side where I was doing the outreach. AI works extremely well if, like I have over the last, for since 2010 or so, been publishing content, writing articles. So now when it goes out to summarize everything that I'm an expert in, everything that I know about, I've got thousands of articles. So when I say write in the tone of voice of M. Curtis McCoy, I've done the work, the earned media to get out there and get enough content out there to where if you ask anybody listening to your show right now, if you get on Google M. Curtis McCoy, you'll see pages and pages of results with where I am the only result on all of those pages. It's either me or one of my social profiles. So that works very well when I say write a pitch for the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast in my tone of voice. Now it has no problem figuring out there aren't 1,000 different people writing about, if I was running as a political candidate. Same thing. If I had put out all this content over years and years, you would have to work your butt off and spend a ton of money to get enough content out there to confuse AI about what I am and what I stand for. But when you've done the work and done the earned media up front, now when something like AI comes along where you've got the ability to just get on and ask a question and have it summarize all human knowledge, if you're the bulk of all human knowledge that's on the internet about you, makes it really easy for you to be the expert.
Really interesting. It's becoming something else. Every new twists, new turns, new updates, and it's just. I tell people all the time that the single most powerful force on earth is imagination. Okay. And I got that from Albert Einstein. In the close, someone asked Einstein, how'd you come up with the theory of relativity? And he said, and when I was 16 years of age, I imagined myself riding through the universe standing on a moonbeam. And you sit back and say, that's pretty, and that's Einstein's perspective, is everything begins and ends with an idea. Right now, AI is just limited by imagine and the feeding and data volumes, if you will, to bring it up to speed. So I appreciate that.
And prompt
Go
engineering,
ahead.
if you can hire a prompt engineer. A good prompt engineer will not start working for you for under about $250,000 a year. But basically, all that is learning how to properly communicate what you want and figure out, for example, if I'm having it write a pitch and I say to you, write in the style of an Apple. Apple is phenomenal with marketing their products. If I have it write a
Sure.
pitch and I say, rewrite this as a copywriter for Apple. Now it's going to write that in a whole lot more powerful way. If I write an email and I feel like I'm getting pushed around by somebody on a negotiation, if I tell it to make this concise and Spartan in tone, you think of the Spartan warriors, whatever. If you tell it to write in a Spartan tone, it'll be a whole lot more direct, to the point, get you results you're trying to get.
One of the greatest slogans I've ever heard is this.
Yeah.
In fact, I use that all the time now to talk about it. Listen, it's not the mission statement, but it's a slogan. This is Sparta. Anybody not know who we are? Anybody want to go to HR and discuss this? No, this is Sparta. We send children into the wilderness to fight beasts because you got it. This is Sparta. So I absolutely understand that very much.
That's awesome.
And it's beautiful. The slogan's beautiful. It's so clear. And again, it's not for just the people who are the enemies of Sparta, but for the people inside Sparta to understand this is the expectation. This is who we are. That kind of thing.
And that's been out there by enough people posting about Sparta, the characteristics, what that involves. Or when you write an email or a pitch and you tell it to rewrite this in a Spartan tone, ChatGPT will write a whole lot better quality thing, because somebody's done the branding for ChatGPT to understand this is Sparta means make this thing powerful.
Yeah. I've used it also when I'm using grammar, a pitch for doing a presentation someplace or a speech somewhere. And they say, and every solicitation is different. And you say, I got a 200-word bio. Okay, can you just make it 98 words? And it does that. It'll make it 98 words because they want 98 words. And it does a great job. And there's some cleaning you have to do. And I don't want to mention this. I really think I'd rather mention that kind of a thing. But other than that, it is quite spectacular. There's no question. I want to ask this question because I want to do just one question on leadership, but the conversation so far has been great. I appreciate it so much. Curtis, I know you've owned multiple businesses. Can you give me and my listeners and viewers your take on leadership? And can you contrast, if you will, good leadership versus bad leadership?
I would so if you saw me as a leader for example, when I owned our cosmetic medical laser clinic, there was only me, a co-owner, and the doctor that worked for us. We'd have a few people doing, the menial tasks and stuff. But actually, let's go to the cell phone company. I had 3 retail stores, 250,000 customers a month hitting the website. When I started that company back in 2010, I was a terrible leader. I had to micromanage everything. I thought that I was an expert at every possible section, every possible aspect of the business. And so when somebody come up with an idea, I'm like, yeah, that's great. But what if we added this? What if we adjusted this? They say, hey, whatever they did, I always had that extra input to where their responses weren't ever quite good enough. I would not have worked for me. Looking back now, go, man, this guy never appreciates what I say. And he's always wanting me to work harder. Always wanting, I've put in all these crazy hours this week, and he's trying to get me to push just a little bit harder. I probably would have walked out on me if I was my own employee as well. But the contrast between good leadership, bad leadership, as I was reading books, studying more, and figuring out, how do you say it's in retail businesses, or if you're building a telecommunications company where you've got employees doing copywriting and search engine optimization and all the different stuff that goes into that. Can you get them to do enough? Nobody's going to run your business like you would run it because they're not tied to it emotionally, financially. The risk isn't associated. If your business goes under, they'll go down to the street. They're probably a good employee. They'll go down to the street and work for your competitor and probably make better money. So figure out how to inspire and uplift and encourage. And when somebody's doing their best, let that be the best. Let that be good enough where somebody's doing their best. Go, man, great job. I really appreciate that. That was a good idea. And now that's going along for a little while, maybe let them learn how to tune it up and make it better. But if it's good enough to make your business successful and profitable, let people's best be their best. Don't be, I'd say the micromanaging was probably micromanaging and not ever really appreciating what somebody did because it wasn't as good as I would have done it was a trait of poor leadership. Good leaders, I heard this a while back, good leaders teach teachers to teach. Replicate your own effort.
I think one of the most important things, and I got this in my book and in other places, is the ability to create an environment where people come to do their best work every day, number one. And number two is to give them the greatest motivation force on the planet, which for me is meaning. Okay? Meaning. You're doing something that means something to you and to the organization. So I want you to revel in that, if you will. Revel in the idea that you're gaining a certain level of meaning from the things that you do. I will spare you my last question, which is always the magic wand question, because we're getting close to the end, unless you want to take a shot at it.
Oh, go for it.
Okay, so if you had a magic wand and you could change anything that you see in the world in which you live, and if you want to corral it in the area of personal branding, I'm good with that. What would it be and why did you choose that?
I would love to see people be able to look in the mirror and realize that you were created in the image of the God that created the entire universe. You, by default, are amazing. God did, I've heard the saying for years, God didn't make no junk. I think that was on a movie even. But if you're feeling bad about yourself, if you're feeling like, man, why do I even live? Why do I exist? What's my point of being here? Go out and help some people. You were created to network, to interconnect, to make other people's lives better, to share the love of God. So if you're feeling like, man, I'm worthless, and I'm not saying if you're contemplating suicide right now, feeling, am I worthless? No, I'm not helping anybody. Go ahead and do it. What I'm saying is fix that. You gain self-worth. You gain your sense of worth by helping other people, by solving problems. So whether that's building a personal brand where you can reach more people, or if you know nobody, you've got no friends, there's nobody around you, go out and do something today. Figure out how to help somebody, how to make somebody smile. Even if it's a matter of just going to the coffee shop, you walk through, you notice you like something about somebody, give them a little compliment and make it your goal today. Go out and make somebody smile. And I guarantee that'll change your life.
It's all about taking control, as far as I'm concerned, and having a sense of control and autonomy over your own life. And for me, many times I can say that when I've ever been down, it's because I've had a loss of sense of control. Things are being done to me. I'm not doing anything to push back on it, if you will. And whether you just start running, you start jogging, it could be something as simple as that to exercise control over your life. So absolutely, if you're going out and helping somebody, you're exercising a level of control. You're giving yourself a sense of meaning. Again, meaning matters so much.
Yes, sir.
Curtis, you've been a great guest. I appreciate it so much. Thank you, and for being on the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast today. I wish you great health in the future. I wish you great success, and may all good things come to you. Thank you so very much.
Appreciate you, John.